Hello, Caroline. It's good to have you here. A nutrition and naturopath. We've have spent some time together in our last session, but we've got a load of new questions today. In particular, I know Menopause Awareness Month is coming up, so we've got a bunch of things for you to cover off today around everything you do, and that is cool. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Hope you are too,
Good,
Johnny.
good to see
Yeah.
you. So I understand you're approaching 15 years in business, celebrating 15 years in business.
Yeah.
What's changed in the nutrition and health world during this time?
Gosh, so much. When I look back at all the training that I did, which was really in depth, and over the years, I have to keep up my what's called CPD, constantly looking at new science and research and attending training and webinars. One of the biggest shifts I think in those 15 years has been all around the gut health. It's an area I particularly specialize in now, but our understanding around the gut microbiome, its importance to just about every health disease in the body, keeping us healthy or not, as the case may be. So that's been a significant change, and our understanding in that space is just fascinating to me. I think the other big thing in my world is the use of what we call functional testing. So, you might hear a lot around Zoe testing, for example. It's one type of testing, but I use very in-depth stool testing in my practice, very in-depth hormonal type of testing, which is really good at understanding, certainly from a menopause point of view, what's going on in hormones, but it's not just for women, it's for men as well. But the whole raft of the functional testing world is very interesting, and people could spend a fortune, but I keep that quite precise as to what I offer. DNA testing as well, very, very interesting. And just generally, I think from a sort of a dietary nutrition point of view, the what I call big food has always been a bit of a problem, if you like, in terms of the food offerings. But of course, what we're hearing about all the time now is ultra processed foods. And really, on the whole, we are quite a sick nation. And has that come about from just the complete and utter overload and growth of that, of the sale of foods in that space of ultra processed food. So though, I could probably talk about a lot more things,
Yeah,
but I think those are really big things in my world that I noticed the big changes in the last 15 years.
yeah, brilliant. We're going to break down some of those individually. I've got a question that's just come up for me, actually.
Yeah.
What about people's individual knowledge and awareness? Like when they're coming to you, are they much more informed now or?
Well, that was what I wanted to go on and talk about a bit more because people are using, and in a good way somehow, we've got Google, we've now got AI, you've got this explosion of social media. So everyone is using that, everyone's got their own knowledge and talking about things. And yes, people are either becoming more informed and taking more responsibility, and there's this increased awareness in the health space and nutrition space. But how reliable is all that information? Can you really rely? Are they trusted sources? How well trained are people in this space? Or have they just picked up different skills and are on jumping on the bandwagon, for example? That's a problem. But also, it creates overwhelm for people. So, people get overwhelmed. The latest trend, the latest fad, the latest supplement, the latest foods that they should or shouldn't eat and avoid. And so people either start eliminating huge food groups or they start spending a fortune on supplements, and they have bag loads of supplements when they come to see me. They don't know what they should eat, they don't know what they should be taking. And and sometimes it either creates scaremongering for people or complete overwhelm for people, or they simply just stop and do nothing because they just don't know where to start. So there are good things about it and there's bad things about it, really.
Yeah, naturally, I can totally imagine that. And you mentioned supplements there and people bringing whole bagfuls, whole bagfuls. There's so many brands, and I guess I might, even TikTok now, lots of the TikTok lives of people selling supplements and things.
Yeah.
And then I know myself, like you go into Holland and Barrett and the prices are just range complete or compared to a supermarket to Holland and Barrett.
Mm.
Tell me or tell us all a bit more about supplements and what, how those different brands vary. And I guess ultimately, do people need to take supplements?
Yeah. Do people need to take them? How do you know what you should be taking? How do you know you can rely on the brand? Is the sale of a multi-supplement from a bog standard supermarket, don't need to name names, compared to some of the what I call higher quality supplements, and it's to do with the formulation, it's to do with the potency, and does everybody need to take magnesium and have fish oils, and do you need creatine? So it's about becoming very precise and personalized based on people's individual needs, based on their diet, based on their health concerns and their symptoms, and ultimately then choosing the best quality and the best potency for that person. The other thing that we need to be very careful of, and this is potentially dangerous with this explosion of supplements, and you can just buy anything online. How safe are those supplements for people if they're on medication? That's a big part of my training is understanding people's medications and what is safe to take in what strength, or should they take it at all? Because there can be a contraindication. And some people, I've stopped people taking certain supplements because it's interfered with their antidepressant medication, for example. They shouldn't be taking it. I explain why. So it's a huge market. It's billions of pounds worth or dollars worth of market now. Yet we don't need everything. And some people shouldn't take anything at all. And again, it's coming down to that very personalized approach to know what people need and when.
Yeah, yeah. It's a, a minefield,
It is
basically.
a minefield. It's hard for me to keep up because I get inundated on a daily basis almost about new brands and new products, and I have hundreds of brands that I could recommend to
Mm.
people. So even to a degree, it's a little bit hard for me to try and stay on top of it. New formulations of new Ayurvedic herbs and adaptogens, not let alone your basic nutrients. So how on earth can the general public stay on top of it? Because this is my world and it's my responsibility to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mind blowing, really.
Is there any, little tips or guidance for people when they're trying to choose a supplement? Is things they should avoid, or is it difficult for you to say on that sort of basis?
It is sort of difficult to say, other than you do get what you pay for, I do believe. So, if you compare, let's just go back to a multivitamin and mineral. If you go into a shop and it costs £10 to get a multivitamin and mineral, it's not going to be the same formulation in terms of absorbability and therapeutic potential as a supplement of a multi potentially that costs £30. That's a very broad example, but it tends to be that way that you can't compare the two. So you're probably going to get a better quality outcome from a multi, let's use that one, from spending more money from a better brand than something that's just a supermarket brand, because that's not their forte, is there? A supermarket.
Yeah, totally. And I guess for someone weighing up the costs of coming to see yourself, that's actually very powerful because the amount of money they could waste buying the wrong stuff
Absolutely.
versus the time and money invested with you, it would seem
Yes.
like an obvious thing to do.
I've just finished a client call. It's not the first consultation, it's our third consultation. And I was going through, when she first came to see me, she was on 30 different supplements. And I've got it down now to about eight for very specific reasons. But she was on 30. How can the body actually process 30 supplements? I say to people, it's a bit like food. Your body has to still process that and digest it and absorb it. The liver has a role to play in that. You can't, your body doesn't need 30 supplements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Well, I'm aware, thanks to yours and I conversation just before we got started, it's Menopause Awareness Month here in the UK. From a nutrition perspective, where should ladies start that doesn't create overwhelm? Where should they start in around this subject without creating overwhelm?
Yeah, from a nutrition point of view, I think we need to go back to basics. It comes back to that thing. I like to keep things simple, and you need to keep things simple so that things become workable and achievable. So start with the basics. Think about eating clean. That is as much as possible trying to avoid those ultra processed and processed foods. Start to plan a little bit about what you're going to put, what you're going to put on the table, what you're going to cook. But it doesn't need to be cooking complex meals. You can cook quite simple things like a piece of fish, a tray of roasted vegetables, for example. That's not complicated. It's actually quite simple to do, but it's clean food, it's proper food. So keep it simple in that way and minimize those ultra processed foods and trying to plan for that. And I think what's really important for ladies is trying to put themselves first. Because very often at this stage in life that women have got so used to putting themselves second or bottom of the pile. And it's time to sort of reclaim that time. It's not selfish at all. It's really important for women to prioritize themselves and to start doing that. That's where I think women should start.
Yeah. I've got friends who cook different meals for themselves and their
Gosh.
kids. And then you think to yourself, surely those kids are old enough to cook for you now.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes. And
Yeah,
they shouldn't be doing that really, should they?
exactly.
Yeah.
So if you could simplify how women can prepare and support themselves at this stage in their lives, what simple approaches would you suggest they do naturopathically?
So, along the same lines as that, it's thinking outside the just the diet approaches. We hear a lot of this on the news. Trying to prioritize sleep. Now, people often say sleep becomes difficult at that time. Get to bed earlier, try and create a routine of going to bed at the same time, sort of getting up at the same time, trying to get out in some fresh air, getting some movement. That movement does not and isn't necessarily the right time to be thinking of real high intensity cardiovascular. It's movement. It could be the yoga, it could be swimming if that's your thing, dancing, and trying to carve out, from what we've just said, is trying to carve out time for yourself because it isn't just about what you're feeding yourself. It's the whole holistically, naturopathically, this whole bigger picture. It's about the sleep, it's about the fresh air, it's about the movement. And yeah, putting yourself first again, really, for all of that.
Yeah. It's, the subject of menopause is something that people don't have enough awareness of, men and women. And I know there's lots of events this coming weeks about menopause awareness. In the women you work with, are
Mm.
some of the problems they come with menopause related, but they don't even realize they're menopause related?
Yeah, well, I think it works both ways actually, in that either they come and they don't realize the symptoms of menopause related, or I believe because there has been a growing awareness of menopause, I think there's a tendency to actually group everything together and link it to the menopause. When actually, when I start to break it down with clients, it's not menopause at all. Let's just focus on the diet, get the diet right and balanced and maybe that supplement optimizing certain nutrition and nutrients and that overcomes some of those symptoms. But I think sometimes there's a tendency to think it is all menopause related and therefore hormone related when actually it isn't. So it can work both ways actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So their overall well-being actually supports their menopause
Yes,
symptoms. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, changing gears slightly, another hot topic is the weight loss jabs. Not just all over the news, but all over conversation at dinner
Oh,
parties
absolutely.
and stuff. I hear that 1 in 20 are now on them. That's a lot of money being spent
Two
on
and a half million people in the UK.
at £300 a month.
Yeah, 250 plus, whatever people are prepared to pay, willing to
Yeah,
pay for
yeah.
this. Yeah.
And why should people work with you alongside their jabs to support their long-term weight goals?
So people are using these jabs because they are desperate from a weight point of view. And, they get great results when they're using them because it limits their appetite and it slows down digestion. It limits their ability to what they eat by about 35% of what they can put in their body. The problem becomes that there isn't the training and the education about how to eat in a healthy way, how to eat to maintain and sustain the lower weight or the weight loss. And so, as soon as they start to wean themselves off those medications, the weight loss will start to come on again. People may do well initially because they might focus on a calorie controlled approach, which really isn't the right approach to take at all. I don't count calories in my practice at all. It's the wrong approach. But there isn't this awareness of how to eat, what's driven the weight gain in the first place, which can be a number of factors. So, really instilling in people the how to eat and the education and getting them on the right pathway. So, as they start to wean themselves off those jabs, they have that understanding of how to take it forward. So, the success of keeping that weight off longer term should be maintained.
Yeah. And I hear intermittent fasting is something that people try or feel like is doing them good. What are your views on intermittent fasting?
It can work for some people, but it's not for everyone. And I talk a lot with clients, and again, to do with the weight loss is one of the biggest problems for people is snacking. People are constantly snacking, and we've become a snacking culture because food is everywhere we go. Snacks are available everywhere. That really isn't helpful from a weight loss point of view or for health overall for lots of reasons. My approach actually is first and foremost, we need to get people eating three good quality balanced meals a day. We need to start to get people to feel sustained between meals so there's no desire to reach for snacks, and encourage that balanced blood sugar level, keeps people on an even keel, helps people to feel calm and in control of their lives, keep their energy levels up. And when you do that, there may not be a need to go for this extended periods of time to do intermittent fasting. It doesn't suit everyone. It will suit some people. And when we mean that sort of intermittent fasting, some people are going for what we call a 16-8. So they eat in an 8-hour window. And then they might fast for 16 hours. But what are they actually eating in that 8-hour window? Are they really good quality meals? Are they getting the right amount of protein in, the right amount of sort of vegetables and the diverse vegetable diet that people need to be eating and the right fats? Or are they eating just anything in that 8-hour window in order just to keep the weight off the rest of the time? Because my approach is health first, weight follows, but you need to get the basics right first of all. So my first and foremost, three good quality balanced meals a day. And if you want to extend that fasting window, because we should fast for 12 hours overnight, so 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., for example, 7 to 7. If you want to then extend it because you feel better for doing that, well, then you can do that because you've got the foundations right in the first place.
Yeah. It must be such a relief for your clients to hear that, that they can actually eat normally and lose weight.
Yes. Yeah, because there's too much focus around weight. Weight first. It's not about health, it's all about the weight. But if you eat right from a health perspective, the weight should follow in a very gradual, sustained way, whilst keeping people without desire for food. People talk about food noise, so people aren't just constantly thinking about food. They feel satisfied and satiated and happy and calm and on an even keel. That's what we should be like all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's like pictures, old fashioned pictures or pictures from decades ago. There really aren't that many fat people in those
No,
pictures.
no, you look at people, I've seen it on social media. We've been talking about that. But people on the beach in the 50s, and what were they eating? They were eating lard. Interesting, that, isn't it? They were though.
Yeah, dip their bread in a bit of
Yeah.
lard. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, thinking specifically about some of the, it's always nice to hear examples of success stories and stuff. Is there a particular, you might not mention by name, but a client of yours where you have used your skills in naturopathy, nutrition, and gut health to make a difference?
Yeah, I've got a lovely case story of working with a mum, concerned mum with a 8-year-old daughter who had chronic eczema on her arms and her legs. I mean, so chronic, 8 years old. She was withdrawn. She couldn't concentrate at school. She couldn't sleep. So that affected mum. It starts to affect the whole family. And by working with her over a number of months, because these things don't resolve themselves overnight, we're talking over 4 months, 6 months, but you start to see gradual changes. But over that period of time, we really got on top of that eczema. She wasn't scratching anymore. She wasn't a withdrawn child. She was going to parties and enjoying herself. I met her. She became talkative and smiley. Mum was smiley. Mum's so happy, as is the rest of the family. But we had to really focus on supporting from the inside out, supporting the gut, lowering toxicity, tweaking the diet. You've got to recognize you're working with an 8-year-old child. So, you have to work with that. You can't expect perfection. I don't expect perfection with anybody. Putting in the missed nutrients. There are certain nutrients very important for skin, like zinc and fatty acids are really important. And over time, with the tweaking the diet, feeding the body, correcting imbalances in the gut, we saw this gradual transition, and this little girl effectively just came back to life again, sleeping, not scratching, skin was healing, didn't need to use steroids on the skin, going to school, happy child, able to concentrate more. I mean, that's an absolute win for everybody concerned. So it's a lovely story. And I bumped into the mum very recently at the gym, actually, and she just said, "You need to be telling everybody about this." And I go, "Well, yeah, I tried to tell the stories, and she said, "You need to be on these groups about, eczema. And I've been trying to pass on your details." I said, "Well, thank you, but people have got to believe in it to start with, that these things can work. But, no two people are the same. I do recognize that. But there are alternative approaches that can be very, very helpful when you look at the person holistically at a whole, and work with the family or work with the individual and make gradual changes. And yeah, the success is just it's just a lovely story.
Yeah, that is a lovely story. And, after 15 years, how would you sum up that, the greatest gift that you bring to clients?
Really listening to the client's story, explaining to them the pathways and the triggers that led to their concerns and their health situation today, and providing really simplified approaches that work with them, that's personalized to them and their lifestyle, to start to make those changes over a period of time, to get the body back in balance, to create a journey to move forwards with that keeps them healthy.
Lovely. And when you meet people, how do you describe your work in one sentence?
How do I describe my work?
Yeah,
Gosh, now you've got me. My work, well, that is my work in one sentence. It is working with individuals to find the root cause to the concerns that's going on in their body, and just working with them to bring the body back into balance. It's imbalances that are the driver, and we need to join up the dots. And I join up the dots for people using nutrition, naturopathy, and gut health to do that, to bring the body back into balance.
lovely. And I've got a little question that pops into my mind, Caroline, based on that case study. How do you, or, must be quite difficult to get children to eat the right stuff, maybe adults as well, really.
Mm.
How do you help people get over the idea of what they like and don't like?
I tend to work with people's likes and dislikes. And but then if you start to get a little bit of success for people by explaining, by eating certain things is going to help them, then slowly, slowly, they might be more adventurous in what they're prepared to try. I've worked with people before that tell me they don't like vegetables. And then you dig a bit deeper and they might like carrots and they might like peas. So we start there, and we start to get them to eat them more regularly every day, put them on the plate, eat them every day, eat more of it. Does that make you start to feel a bit better with the other things that we're doing? Right. Perhaps you could try. Would you think you could try something else? Right. Start to eat something else. And if they start to feel better and improve their health symptoms, then they're likely to be a little bit more adventurous. But you'll always get people that say they hate oily fish and they're never going to go there. So you have to accept that, and I have to work around it with supplements. And if people are a vegan and vegetarian, I have to accept that and work around it. But I have to explain the difficulties and that we need to supplement to get certain nutrients in the body. But even then, I've had people who may have started off on that journey and I work with them on that journey, but they might then say, I think I'm going to start eating fish again. And I go, that's your choice entirely, but that gives us greater flexibility in what we can, how we feed the body with protein and fats, for example. So small, steady steps, working with them and just trying to make small tweaks in their diet. And if they start to feel better, then they might be more prepared to make bigger changes along the way.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah. And how can someone who's interested in working with you, how should they contact you? Do you have any resources available? What are their options for getting in contact?
I have a great YouTube channel called Peyton Principles Natural Health. I've got hundreds of videos that I've recorded over the last few years. Some of them are like 20 minutes long and some are shorts, short reels. So snippets of information. There's loads of information there just to find out more about me, but get a lot of information from that. The same on my website, Peyton Principles, where I've got lots of blogs and podcast recordings on there. So that's a good starting place to find out more about me. Instagram as well, Peyton Principles Natural Health.
Brilliant. Well, lovely catching up with you today, and I wish you a lovely rest of the day and a successful rest of the month.
Thank you so much.